good evening, this is Hound Dog Steve coming to you on the 19th of February. Well, a very warm welcome to all of you. Thank you for returning and joining the conversation. And this evening, oh my God, Europe is in such a mess right now. One of the leaders of the Yellow Vest movement in France has said that France is on the verge of a civil war. Italy has promised to send militiamen, if needed, to overthrow the government. There is a new, absolutely bombshell report that's suggesting that it is the euro that is leading to stagnation throughout Europe as far as growth is concerned. And of course, as we said, Italy has already fallen into a recession. And Germany has certainly slowed down, and so has France. So you've got the three economic engines of Europe, and they're predicting much slower growth into the future. So this is just all adding to the woes. And on top of that, what did France do? They raised the cost of food by 10%. The lack of foresight is absolutely staggering. It defies any kind of logic to do that. But of course, you know, the French government is strapped for cash, and so it is looking to get money wherever it can. And of course, most taxes are just handed right over to the public. So on top of a 23% carbon tax on gasoline and other fuels, which it's in its own way rippled through the economy, and every product that you buy somehow has gasoline attached to it, whether it's through production or through delivery, whatever it is, to even driving to purchase it involved a gasoline component. And so this has had a massive effect on people's already limited incomes. And so, as I said, this year is going to be absolutely explosive as far as the EU is concerned, from every aspect. And we haven't even touched on Brexit. That's a whole other issue right now that's sort of gone quiet. The clock is ticking and everyone is waiting for March the 29th. But of course, the other big thing that's happening in Europe is the elections in May to the European Union. And it is looking like it is going to be an absolute landslide of populist-leaning governments. And Italy has come out and said, if there isn't a large number of populist leaders voted into the EU, then they might as well exit. So that has really shaken everything. I think I mentioned the other day that you could well see an Italexit. Okay, well, here we go. Now they're trying to backtrack a little bit, but it's out there. They've thrown that ball out there as a potentiality. Anyway, let's go take a look at these articles and I'll come back and do a quick wrap up. Okay, here we go. Okay, here's a series of stories from the Express. France on brink of civil war as Yellow Vest leader threatens to bring down government. The leader of the Yellow Vest movement that has wreaked havoc across Europe with violent protests that triggered the collapse of the French economy has declared he has militiamen ready to bring down the government following a shock meeting with the Italian coalition. Christophe Chalencon, one of the leaders of the Yellow Vest revolution, said France is on the brink of civil war before he vowed to fight the French President Emmanuel Macron over Paris austerity. In a gathering in Italy with anti-establishment party Five Star Movement leader Luigi Di Maio and his right-hand man Alessandro Di Battista, the Frenchman raged, "We have people, militiamen, ready to intervene because they also want to bring down the government. Today everything is calm, but we are on the brink of a civil war. I know that I risk a lot. I can get shot in the head at any moment, but I don't care. I defend my convictions, because if I got shot in the head, the people, Macron, would end up on the guillotine. We have reached such a level of confrontation today that Macron would also fall if I fall. The people would break into the Elysee and destroy everything, him, his wife, and all the group." When pressed for more details on his military, Mr. Chalencon added, "Yes, militiamen, people who have withdrawn from the army and who are against the government." Of course, I know it's disturbing. It's disturbing, but you do not realize it. Macron is afraid. This is why I tell you that he is afraid. Like France, tensions in Italy have also hit boiling point, though unlike Yellow Vest protesters taking aim at their leader, Mr Macron, over his 23% fuel hike and rising living costs, in Italy the coalition government made of Mr Di Maio and League leader Matteo Salvini are embroiled in a bitter battle with their superiors, the EU. Recently, Italy's shrinking financial economy has sparked fears that the troubled nation will face an early election, which will plunge the entire Eurozone into more chaos. And here we go. What else would you do in times of recession and difficulty? Oh, that's right. The French government deliberately increases the price of food. The key here is that the government is opening the floodgates to legislative and even administrative price controls on food. The 2-year experiment on an increased margin of 10% on the net price of food means that the net price of food will increase by 10%. Self-interest of the Treasury. It is clear that the French state, virtually bankrupt and in search of new tax resources, will recover taxes on margins increased by force through VAT, that's a value added tax, at rates of 5.5 or 10 or even 20%. The latter rate applying to many products including alcohol, confectionery and all the sugar-based products, margarines and vegetable fats. Additional tax revenue here is significant and it will be paid for by, you guessed it, the consumer, you and I. So there you go. That's why you have the Yellow Vest protests. Economists claim the EU is spreading stagnation across the bloc. The European single currency, the euro, is spreading economic stagnation across the EU and is at risk of implosion, 2 leading economists claimed in a book on the state of the bloc. Mr Halligan and Mr Lyons wrote, "Europe isn't working, a trend illustrated most starkly by monetary union. The single currency, which most economists said the UK must join back in the late 80s, is doing untold damage, spreading economic stagnation across much of southern Europe. Locked in a high currency straitjacket, Greece and Spain are suffering from 40 to 50% youth unemployment. And Italy, having barely grown since the euro's launch in 1999, could face a major banking crisis, which, given the size of the Italian economy, has the potential to spark a global systemic meltdown." France, terrified of losing EU influence in election, wipeout. We're facing a catastrophe. France is terrified of losing its political clout following the next European Parliament elections, with several parties forecast to suffer crushing defeats. The loss of MEPs in the European Parliament could also have a huge impact in France itself. According to Politico, Eurosceptics would be boosted by 35 French MEPs, 21 from Marine Le Pen's National Rally, 8 from the far-left France Unbowed, and 6 from the nationalist Debout La France. Okay, Salvini reveals May elections will topple Brussels elite following shock Italy exit threat. The Italian government has continued its row with Brussels, calling the EU out for its hypocrisy after Deputy Prime Minister Matteo Salvini boasted that the EU faces a change after the European elections in May. Matteo Salvini has boasted that the EU will finally be changed for good following the European parliamentary elections in May. This comes amid a wave of attacks from Italian politicians on the behaviour of the EU leadership. Claudio Borghi, chairman of the Lower House Budget Committee, suggested that Italy should leave the European Union unless there is a decisive shift towards populist parties in European parliamentary elections in May. Italy would be better off outside the Eurozone, as Borghi calls for nation's own currency. Italy could solve its financial woes by leaving the Eurozone and establishing its own currency, the economic head of the ruling League Party said today. The nation is continuing to grapple with the fallout of its deficit budget announcement after unveiling plans for a 2019 deficit of 2.4%. Italian government officials have been forced to defend the move amid growing fears over the sustainability of the nation's debt load. So as you can see, it is looking like there is turmoil set for the summer months in Europe as the weather starts to heat up. Believe you me, the cold weather is putting off a lot of action right now, and so now as the weather warms up, I think you'll see this action and the protests will warm up. And it's hard to imagine what else can go wrong for Europe. Brexit is already happening, and they're already pricing in that. I'm sure all the businesses, whether the governments are or not, I'm not sure, but certainly the businesses would be. You know, the only thing I can think of would be falling into an all-out recession, like a complete slowdown of the financial services, maybe in the 2008 rumble, because this time there will be no recovery, there will be no government bailouts, because governments are in no position to take on any more debt or to bail out any ailing bank. So it would be an absolute free-for-all. So yes, get ready, strap in your seatbelt, get your flak jacket on, and get ready for a rip-roaring summer of event after event. I mean, it seems like not a day goes by and things have been ratcheted up another few degrees. And so we're very close to boiling point. Okay, if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe and comment below. And in the meantime, this is Hound Dog Steve signing off. You take care, you have a great evening, and we will talk to you very, very soon. See you now. Bye.